Good afternoon and welcome to KTN Newsdesk, coming to you both on the KTN Home channel and on KTN News, available on all free-to-air set-top boxes, as well as on channel 274 on DSTV, channel 14 on Zuku, and channel 94 on GoTV. Coming to you this hour, right, we have comprehensive coverage of what is taking place in Burundi. We also have a very insightful interview with an upcoming entrepreneur, a fashion designer who's going to be showcasing her work. She actually dressed Martha Karua during the presidential debate. We'll get to know more about her in a short while. But for now, let's begin our coverage of the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And the support of the United States government in security will help Kenya's fight against terror. President Uhuru Kenyatta said this as he briefed the media on the forthcoming Global Entrepreneurship Summit, scheduled to be held in Nairobi this weekend. The nation is eagerly awaiting for the arrival of the U.S. President Barack Obama, visiting Kenya for the first time as president.
This is our event, all of us. As Kenyans, we have the opportunity to learn from the experience and expertise of some of the world's top business development experts and leaders, and to share with them our own achievements and success stories. As entrepreneurs, we will have the chance to meet them in sessions, to pitch our ideas and to grow the scale and impact of our enterprises. Investors will find opportunities for decent returns in some of the world's most cutting-edge, innovative and responsive solutions to be shared at this summit. To welcome our guests and friends with the hospitality that they deserve, we have had to plan most carefully. I'm glad to say that my government and our partners have devoted great care to these arrangements, and that our work has been rewarded with commitments from over 1,400 participants, as well as a large delegation from the United States that will be accompanying President Obama. It is an inspiration to note that out of the 1,400 delegates that will be participating, a fifth of them will be Kenyans and half will be African.
Now, meanwhile, Obama welcomed Nigeria's freshly elected President Muhammadu Buhari to the White House, lending a personal endorsement after the country's first ever democratic transition. Obama praised the March vote as an affirmation of Nigeria's commitment to democracy. Obama further added that the people of the oil-rich and diverse nation understand that only through a peaceful political process can change take place. Obama, who's facing criticism for not including the continent's most populous country and biggest economy on his African tour this week, turned on the charm, lavishing praise on the former military ruler. Buhari reciprocated the praise, saying that American pressure helped ensure the elections were free, fair and credible. What do we have?
Recently, we saw an election in which a peaceful transition to a new government took place, and it was an affirmation of Nigeria's commitment to democracy, a recognition that although Nigeria is a big country and a diverse country with many different parts, nevertheless, the people of Nigeria understand that only through a peaceful political process can change take place.
It would have been almost impossible if the United States did not maintain the pressure on the former Nigerian government that they will not accept anything less constitutional as far as the processes of the election are concerned.
Right, let's head over to Burundi. And the highly contested presidential election in Burundi sets off amid unrest over incumbent President Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a third term in office. A grenade exploded in Bujumbura, the capital's central business district, Monday night. 2 people are said to have been killed in the pre-poll violence. Local journalists say that gunfire could be heard in the neighborhood of Nyakabiga throughout the night. Samogina reports.
Burundians voted Tuesday amid gunfire and grenade blasts, with President Pierre Nkurunziza widely expected to win a third consecutive term, despite international condemnation and thousands of people fleeing feared violence. At least 2 people, a policeman and a civilian, were killed in a string of explosions and gunfire overnight on Monday, with blasts and shootings heard as polls opened shortly after dawn in the capital Bujumbura, the epicenter of 3 months of anti-government protests. Opposition and civil society groups have denounced Nkurunziza's candidacy as unconstitutional and a violation of a peace deal that ended a dozen years of civil war and ethnic massacres in 2006. Around 3.8 million Burundians are eligible to vote. Critics fear a win by the incumbent will be whole of victory, leaving him ruling over a deeply divided nation. Crisis talks spearheaded by Uganda to forestall the bloodbath in Burundi collapsed on Sunday after the Burundian government officials failed to turn up for the talks. With the elections denounced by the opposition as a sham, the 51-year-old president, a former rebel, born-again Christian and football fanatic, is facing no serious competition. Anti-Nkurunziza protests have been violently repressed, leaving at least 100 dead since late April, with an exodus of over 150,000 ordinary Burundians who fear their country may again be engulfed by widespread violence. In mid-May, rebel generals attempted to overthrow Mr. Nkurunziza in a failed coup. UN electoral observers, the only international monitors in the polls, say the last round of voting took place in a climate of widespread fear and intimidation. The results of the parliamentary polls took a week to be announced. The presidential elections are likely to be seen in the same light. Samogina, KTN News.
Now, following that, the violence in Burundi, because of course of the continuing political crisis, we understand there's a refugee influx in Tanzania. Men, women and children are escaping Burundi and they're heading off to Tanzania, and they're settling in a camp known as Nyarugusu camp. Well, we want to speak to Olivier Antona, who's the emergency coordinator for Doctors Without Borders in Tanzania. He's joining us via Skype. It's great to talk to you this afternoon. Maybe you can start and tell us what exactly is the situation in Nyarugusu camp.
The situation in Nyarugusu, Tanzania, is we receive a lot of people since more than 1 month, an average of 400-500 a day, which it's quite in between 2,000 3,000 a week, with a very big peak before the 29th of June, before the first election, the parliamentary and communal election in Burundi.
Oh, Olivier, what exactly do the refugees need right now?
Because the camp was initially produced for 64,000 Congolese, since they were there since 20 years, 97. And so the new arrival, actually we have more than 140,000 population in the camp, and they need the service of water, sanitation, food, shelter, and health to follow. And that's where MSF has a role to play, because all the actors, they need help to increase the services in the camp.
Now, you know, the political crisis doesn't seem to have an end right now, because the rebels have promised to continue waging their war as long as, you know, the president continues with his bid for the presidency. From your point of view, from where you sit, What is your comment on this? That, you know, this is not going to end anytime soon, and we'll probably have more and more refugees fleeing Burundi.
We follow for sure the political situation in Burundi, but we as a humanitarian actor, we interfere more acting in the camp. We follow the contingency plan shared and elaborated by United High Commissioner of Refugees, and yeah, for sure it's not a good not information, but the HCR, they are in their plan to receive more than 150,000 people, and at least we have now 75 or 78 people who have crossed already the border, meaning that we are waiting to double this population.
Olivier, how long has MSF been in the camp? And you know, I said earlier that, you know, this problem does not seem to have an end right now. What is your projection of how the situation will be like in the days to come?
MSF arrived in the camp end of May due to the very big risk of cholera epidemic, which has been stopped by the intervention of all the actors on hygiene, quality of water, and right now vaccination, OCV campaign vaccination. And so our projection is at minimum to be involved as emergency partner during the next 3 months. But we will continue probably until the end of year. We have received authorization by the Tanzanian authority to work in the region until the end of 2015.
Finally, Olivier, have you been in contact with officials in Burundi, and what do they make of the situation, if you have been?
No, I have no direct contact with the responsible in Burundi. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Olivier Antona, who is the emergency coordinator for Doctors Without Borders in Tanzania, telling us about the humanitarian crisis in Tanzania as a result of what's taking place in Burundi. Men, women and children continue to flee the war-torn, or rather Burundi, whereby violence has been erupting. We understand also that on Monday night there was a grenade attack and 2 people are feared to have died. Well, we'll get to hear more on that developing story, and of course how the refugee influx is like in Tanzania. We understand that more and more people continue to get into Tanzania in that camp called Nyarugusu camp, which is actually on the border between Tanzania and Burundi. Large numbers, we're talking about numbers of about 78,000 Burundians are currently sheltering in Congolese. And remember that this number is actually going up because they're joining 64,000 Congolese refugees who have been there in that particular camp since 1997. So we're talking about 150,000 refugees in Nyarugusu camp, and this camp is actually said to just be able to have a capacity of about 50,000. So we're talking about a number that is 3 times more the capacity of Nyarugusu camp. The pictures that you're seeing there, those are just the families there looking for shelter from Burundi. Those are pictures actually from MSF and Doctors Without Borders, who are currently in Tanzania taking care of the people who are there, saying that of course they need food, water. That is, those are some of the basic and very most important things that the refugees need, because you can see the numbers keep going up. He says that they are receiving about 3,000 refugees every single day. Those are really numbers that are to worry the people there. Well, he was joining us from Geneva, giving us an update of what exactly MSF is doing on the ground. But moving on, a section of Kenyans living in the diaspora now want to be allowed to vie for political office even though they hold dual citizenship. Now, the diasporans are disputing Article 78 of the Constitution, which states that a state officer or a member of the defense forces may not hold dual citizenship. Well, the group is seeking an amendment of that particular article in the Constitution to allow them to vie in the upcoming general election in 2017. Well, here's what they had to say.
For years, Kenyans in diaspora fought to be allowed to acquire foreign citizenship without having to give up their Kenyan nationality. And when the 2010 Constitution was endorsed at a referendum, the answer to their prayer was finally in black and white. A citizen by birth does not lose citizenship by acquiring the citizenship of another country, states Article 16. But now the right they fought so much to have has come back to bite them. Article 78(2) states, a state officer or a member of the defense forces may not hold dual citizenship. That means that the Kenyans out here would have to renounce their second nationality to be allowed to run for political office in Kenya.
It's a black and white thing in our constitution that is actually discriminative. We are not in this process to challenge anybody or any political party or any institution.
We have to wake up as diasporans and think about the future of our children, because our future was disadvantaged by the bad governance. So are we going to let that continue? No.
There are those who've gone into farming, but what about now? That diaspora activist, the person who wants to be a politician, why are we taking them out?
In the run-up to the last general election, Justice David Majanja dismissed a petition in which a Kenyan living in the U.S. had wanted to vie for parliament in Taita Taveta. Now Kenyans in diaspora say they are going down a different route, beginning a signature collection exercise that could culminate into a referendum.
Children that will be coming up to have the chance to go back home and govern the country in a different structure,
It's not fair. We invest so much in Kenya through money remittance and other things.
They have to include us with everything.
Kenyans in diaspora are a popular audience for politicians during election campaigns. Many of them participate actively in different presidential campaigns through strategy and money. The government has already announced plans to have them vote in the next general election, even though the IEBC is yet to commit to the plan. But now it appears the stakes are getting higher, and the next few months could redefine how the millions of Kenyans out there relate with their motherland. Joageo, KTN News.
Still on that particular story and developing issue there, I want to bring in Martin Olo, who's joining us from our Center studio. Thank you very much for joining us, Martin. He is a political analyst. Martin, do you think that their concerns and their demands are actually warranted?
Thank you, Betty. My position is that any Kenyan is free to seek the amendment to the Constitution. And to that extent, anybody, whether in diaspora or not, are free to invoke the position that the Constitution has in how it can be amended. But the key issue is, do they have a basis for wanting to change this? I don't think so. I think that there was wisdom behind Kenyans providing for that clause, so that whoever seeks to be a leader or seeks to be in a place or in a state, to be a state officer, should be somebody that we can hold accountable. So we cannot do that when somebody has a dual nationality and when their own accountability is divided.
Now, Martin, apart from that reason that you've just given, that, there needs to be accountability, is there any, what other reasons, do they have, the committee of experts and everyone who was, who took part in coming up with these laws, what reasons would they have had, to put this such a law in place?
I think that the most critical one is the fact that your loyalty has to be to a certain nation. When you pledge allegiance to a certain flag, to a certain national anthem, surely that is the anthem that you seek to protect or even defend. So you cannot want to be an American and a Kenyan, which is the Constitution allows, but certainly in terms of leadership and holding positions of trust, it's expected that you should not have dual nationality. But more importantly, if you're going to be in the defense forces and America and Kenya were at a conflict, where would you, which position would you take? So there's this divided loyalty that we have to guard against.
So, you know, one of the things that, you know, they were saying, you know, that's definitely a valid point, but they were saying, you know, that children, you know, their children will not be able to take part in, you know, things that they want to. They would not want to be able to come home and, you know, even be part of the Kenya Defense Forces. Do you think, you know, on that basis, do you think that their concerns are warranted?
Not at all. I think we have to make choices. If you want your child to participate into the Kenyan Defense Forces, let them renounce the U.S. citizenship, they become Kenyan. For that period, they can serve, and if after their service they want to be, again, to have a dual nationality, the Constitution so allows. But we cannot have a situation where we are looking at amending the Constitution for my personal benefit. What is good for Kenya is what we should be seeking, not what is good for me.
All right. And you know, the other thing is, what would it take? What would they need to do to, you know, to move such, you know, an amendment, you know, to have it, you know, done and written on paper? What exactly would they need? They are collecting signatures, but how many, if it's signatures, how many would they need? What would it take for this to happen?
I think that there are two ways in which the Constitution can be amended. One is that the government or the executive or the National Assembly can petition, can move an amendment clause which should be then published in accordance with the stated procedures. But then an ordinary Kenyan can petition Parliament or can petition the executive to bring a motion to amend the Constitution. So that way they will require signatures. I am not very certain at this point how many, but certainly they need a number of signatures to meet the threshold in order for them to then trigger. Remember, like the case of Makueni, when they wanted the dissolution, there was a number of petitions, figures to sign and then trigger the action of dissolving the county.
But Martin, do you think they would get political backing? You know, even though they get this number of signatures, when they come back home, do you think they'll be able to get political backing? Also considering that these are the same politicians who actually go there to, you know, to campaign and rally. But when, you know, the rubber meets the road, do you think that they'll actually get that backing?
The politicians go there for money, for fundraising and so on. The diaspora are also free to participate and give their contributions, granted. Will politicians be able to grant them now the opportunity of being both dual citizens at the same time seek political office? In the first instance, it depends on where they want to seek those positions. So the politicians who will feel endangered will be the first ones to say, no, we don't want that. Secondly, the argument would be simple, that you can participate in many ways, you can remit, you can build the country in different ways, you don't have to be a state officer. And lastly, it is something that I doubt I can see it being passed.
Thank you very much, Martin, for that, for your time. He's talking to us, of course, on the basis of the new move by Kenyans living in the diaspora to have Article 78 of the Constitution amendment so that they can be able to come home and, you know, take up state offices, but also have their children be part of the Kenya Defense Forces, which is not possible with the current Article 78. Welcome back. Time for sports. Kenya's victory over Spain last Saturday in a friendly test match has earned Simba 2 points climb in the world rankings. Consequently, Spain dropped from the 19th place to the 28th as a result of the defeat. Kenya won the match 36-27. Kenya is now ranked 28th, up from position 30 before the match. Simba, however, remained 4th in Africa behind South Africa and World Cup bound Namibia. Namibia won 45-5 against Russia. The national 15th rugby had been registering positive results but still need to put in more in the Confederation Cup Group 1A against Namibia on the 28th of August. It's time for us to bid goodbye to our KTN Home Channel viewers, but on KTN News we still continue the interesting conversation with fashion designer Evelyn Odongo. You can join us there, DSTV channel 274, Zuku channel 14 and GoTV channel 94. We'll be having that discussion and so many other news stories. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Betty Kialo. See you tomorrow.